You are now politicking with Po.
Hi, I'm James Goi Jr., aka the Attract Money Guru, and I'm on the PoPolitickin show. And you can keep in touch with me by subscribing to my free monthly Mind, Power, and Money e-zine at jamesgoijr.com. That's James, GOIJR.com. And when you do sign up for my e-zine, you'll get a free copy of my book, Attract Money Forever, a free PDF download of that book, which is a companion book to How to Attract Money Easy Mind Power. And if you use Kindle, you can go to Amazon and you can get my little book, which is a really great resource. It's called 10 Metaphysical Secrets of Manifesting Money, and you can get a free Kindle copy at Amazon.
The PoPolitickin show is brought to you by Audible. With over 180,000 titles to choose from, Audible is great for any continuous learner wanting to grow and expand their knowledge and insight. Go to www.audibletrial.com/POAudio and get an audiobook of your choice free with a 30-day trial. After the trial, your paid membership will begin at $14.95 per month. With your membership, you will receive 1 credit every month, good for an audiobook on Audible. Cancel before your trial ends and you will not be charged. So go to www.audibletrial.com/POAudio and download a free book by Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, Napoleon Hill, Les Brown, Damon John, and more. Always remember that knowledge is power.
Welcome back to PoPolitickin.com, your home for self-help meets hip-hop. Make sure you download our app on iTunes, like, comment, subscribe to this interview. I'm now politicking with a very special guest. I'm very happy to have you on. He's James Goi. He has a lot of money, law of attraction books. He's the Attract Money Guru. So I'm glad to have you on. How you doing today?
Yeah, it's nice to be here, Po. Thanks a lot for having me.
All right. And then, like I said, I was watching your YouTube videos, and I like seeing the transformation. I seen like clean cut guy, and I now see that. So just talk about the transformation to that guy to who you are now.
Right. Well, I guess I'm a recluse basically. I'm a relative recluse at this time in my life, kind of a mind power maniac, and I've done that several times before in my lifetime, the recluse thing and also the hair and the beard and all. Of course, years ago it was much darker, but it just came to be that time again. So I just stopped shaving and started being more reclusive again and getting into my writing and things like that. So it's working for me at this time. I couldn't go out and get a job at Walmart or anything, but that's okay because I don't need to. So.
And then, so when you say recluse, because I'm kind of guessing why you do that. Because to me, I feel like it's just a lot of noise everywhere, and then if you just shut down and go within. So why do you do it?
Yeah, that's basically it. You're hitting the nail right on the head. And years ago, I did a number of years where I had a silence and solitude Sundays, I called it. So from Saturday night until Monday morning, I didn't see or talk to anyone, even on the phone or whatever. And I turned off my television. It's been close to 5 years ago now, and I actually got rid of the television. I'm not saying I won't get another one at some point, but it's kind of the same thing that you're talking about, and that is, turning off the noise. A lot of it's really negative. It's fear-based. It's lack consciousness inducing. And so I do try to teach people that, you don't have to unplug like I do. I mean, basically there's a couple of people I see, they don't live right in my house. They're in another structure on the property. But I do spend most of my time alone, and I don't, expose myself to all that negativity. But there's a price to pay for that too, because I'm a little out of touch. I live in Southern California, and I'll have a relative call me from the East Coast. Oh my God, are those fires close to you? And I'm like, what fires? I haven't heard about them. So I'm a little out of touch with, certain pop culture and things like that I used to keep in touch with. But then again, I'm on social media, so I'm not completely unplugged. You can't be on Facebook and Twitter and stuff without, seeing things leaking in. But I do think that everyone can spend more time alone. And I do think that everyone can limit the input that others can have to them in a negative way. And that can be friends, family, the media, coworkers. A lot of people are just open doors. And it's no wonder that their consciousness is so low and that they're in a lack consciousness and they're not attracting the money they want because they're not controlling their own minds.
Right.
And just inherent in the process of taking control of your mind is controlling access to who has access to your mind and what kind of information you habitually let in. It's a really important step.
You saw that, like that TV show, The Walking Dead. That's what I actually think about when you say The Walking Dead. I just think about, like you said, it's just people that's not really conscious of what they're thinking about. They're just going about their day, and they're letting other people run their lives for them instead of themselves.
Right. And that's kind of what it is. People are on automatic.
Mm-hmm.
They're really in like a stimulus response mode. They just go through life and things, are presented to them, and then they just act and react and think and say and speak in all their just pre-programmed ways. There's not a lot of original thinking going on, and there's not a lot of contemplation or mindfulness, like, what am I feeling right now, and why am I saying this again? Why do I always say this? Why do I put up with this? You just, people just go through life assuming that everything is, that they're living their lives as a walking, breathing, thinking person, but really they're on automatic. They're programmed. They're kind of like computers. They're running on old programs that, for the most part, don't serve them overly well in many instances, especially in the attracting money realm, on positive thinking and all of that, and applying the law of attraction for all areas of life. They just don't think about it, so they just respond. And so, but mind power is about focus, and to take control of our minds, we need to be able to focus our minds, and that means we need to not only think good things, but limit the bad things that we allow to reach us on a regular basis.
And then even with the thinking, I'm also learning that you have to have a feeling behind it, a vibration too.
Right.
So that's what I'm really trying to focus
on. Thoughts automatically will be connected with feelings, and that's why your thoughts are so important, because if you have good thoughts, if you're thinking about things you'd like to create or like to see come about, or just things you enjoyed in the past or in the present, you'll have good feelings. And if you think about, things you don't want to come about, like worry. People worry about things, and they think about, oh, well, what if I don't have my rent money? Or what if I'm one of the ones they cut at work and I get laid off? And they're having negative images, negative concepts, and the negative emotions are going to go along with it. The way I like to explain it sometimes is the thought is the mold. Like if you're looking at a picture on a wall in a frame, thought is like the frame. It's how you're framing things. But what the picture is, really, to a large degree, is caused by how you think. So, how you feel, I mean. So the thoughts are the mold, but the feelings and emotions actually breathe life into it. That's the stuff that really gets the universe and your subconscious mind working and, creating and making things happen, because that's, it really does. People think, well, I change my thoughts and then I'll be more successful and I'll have better habits and I'll be able to function at a higher level. But what a lot of people miss or don't really give enough attention to is, yeah, that's all true. But if you think and feel better, and which automatically will make you have better images and everything else, you will be affecting the world out there. In other words, people's thoughts, other people's thoughts, feelings, actions, circumstances in general, events you'll start to notice that they'll transpire and start to unfold in ways that help and support the visions that you're trying to bring to fruition. And so the thinking and the feeling, they're both extremely important parts of the process.
Then speaking of thinking, I know you was on you was Think and Grow Rich, the Legacy, a documentary talking
Right.
about Napoleon Hill, and that's actually like, so I would say I've been kind of on this journey since 2006. And that was one of the very first books I read. So I really like his stuff, and I still study his work. So I just want you to talk about the importance of that book to you.
Yeah, right. I mean, I found that book. It was the first book that I found when I came to California from New Jersey as a young man. Within the first couple of years, somebody loaned me the book actually, and I mean, I just knew as soon as I was reading it that, oh wow, this is the missing piece. This is what I've been missing. I've always felt when I was younger like there was something really, really important right under the surface, but I didn't know what it was. I almost felt like I was in a dream world. There's something missing. There's an important piece to this thing called life, and I'm missing it. And what is it? And when I found that book, I knew what it was, and that was the mind power angle. That was the fact that we are creative, inherently, creative beings, in that our thoughts are creative in nature. Our thoughts actually cause things to happen to us and outside of us. At a distance, like we were talking about people's thoughts and feelings, people's actions and things, thoughts and feelings having to do with us. And so it immediately set me on a course of just reading everything I could get my hands on. I started going to swap meets, used bookstores, yard sales, and just finding everything I could find. Within a few years, I was teaching this stuff. And so that was the book, though, that really started me off. When I was teaching, the metaphysics and things, I would find that a lot of people who knew about this stuff, some of them had been studying it for a decade or more, longer than I had, but routinely they would say things like, well, James, I've used it for this, I used it to get the perfect relationship and that, and these techniques, but why doesn't it work for money? And I would always say, well, it does work for money. It works exactly the same. But I was really intrigued by the fact that so many people had more of a challenge using it for money than other areas of their life. And so that's why that was my first book, How to Attract Money Using My Power, because I wanted to address that. And what I found was there's a lot of issues, and I cover them in the book. Self-image is important, and I give that a chapter in the book. But what I found also very telling was that people really didn't use the principles and the techniques specifically for money to the degree that they should have been to create what it was they said they were trying to create. And part of that is that there's just so much negativity and confusion around money. And we have all these conflicting thoughts and ideas. Yeah, we want more, but yet we have these ideas that, well, if we have too much, then someone else won't have enough. And rich people are bad and dishonest. And, things are tough all over. And just, money is the root of all evil. All of these negative ideas. So there's a lot of conflict. And so we need to get through that conflict, and we need to focus our minds, and we need to bring all of our thoughts and feelings having anything to do with money. I call it our money mindset, and it's a chapter in How to Attract Money Using Mind Power. And we need to bring it all into line. And when we do, and we don't have to be on point all the time, we don't have to be, doing affirmations 24 hours a day or anything like that. But when we get a hold of this thing and we understand how mind power works, and when we work it properly, our whole lives change. Everything changes, our finances and everything else.
I like how it's one chapter that is stuck out to me a lot is Speak As If.
Right.
I think that's very important. You gotta like watch your words and what you say about yourself.
Oh, it's so important. People do not, what you say about yourself, what you say about things in general, your circumstances, people don't realize that they are speaking themselves into poverty. They're speaking themselves into, problems, into disharmony, into sickness. People, because our words are so powerful. And if I can take a look here in the book, As you know, I quote 160 other books, separate books, separate authors in the book, and I have 8 quotes in each chapter. And just on the speak as if, Julia Seton, The Science of Success, 1914. And she wrote, if we listen to the words of the failure multitude, we will soon learn that by their words they are justified and condemned. That was Julia Seton, The Science of Success, 1914. Walter DeVoe, Mystic Words of Mighty Power, 1905. Thoughts are living things, and spoken words give to thoughts a body of physical vibrations, which makes them still stronger. And there's others in here, and I like to read those to people sometimes because they think like, how can this be? What you say creates your life, and I'm just saying these things because they're true, and that's true to one degree, but there's another degree that they're missing, and that is, yes, they may be saying these things because they're true, but these things are true because they're saying them.
Right.
And so I like people to know that, I didn't make this stuff up. I studied hundreds of books. I collected hundreds of quotes and whittled it down to the 160 that I used. This information has been around for hundreds and even thousands of years in different spiritual traditions and religions and just teachings of great minds of all times. And but if people come away, I always hope that everyone who listens to an interview I do, they come away with at least one thing that can utterly transform their lives, whether or not they ever read my book or even read any other book on mind power again. And if this was the only lesson they remember, was that our words create our reality because they form our thoughts. Our words not only form our thoughts, but they affect our thoughts. They expose our thoughts. The words come out of our mouth, but they go right back in our ears. So if what we're saying is what we don't want, like I hope this doesn't happen or I'm afraid that's going to happen, then we're actually reinforcing it and making it more probable. So simply by changing the way we speak and speaking as if, which basically the technique as it has to do with money is that you always want to strive to speak as if those financial circumstances you want to be reality either are now or will be reality. And if that's all you do, you'll utterly transform your finances. But the beauty of the techniques really and the way I present them is that you can't just do one technique without inadvertently doing others. In other words, speaking as if is basically a form of positive affirmation. That's another technique. Speaking as if, when you speak about things the way you want them to be, automatically images will arise within your mind of those things. And so that's visualization comes into it. And when we have those positive images, we're just naturally going to think about those end results we want. That's another technique in the book, think end results. And we're going to have the positive feelings that are associated with that. It's another technique, another chapter, think and feel as if. But a person doesn't have to know anything about any of all of that I just said. If all they knew was speak as if, you can see how they would be doing all those other things as a natural consequence without even knowing it. And that's why I always tell people, you can take one technique. I once used one simple affirmation because I was $10,000 in credit card debt and going in deeper each month. And now it got to the point where I was using the cards not only to make up the difference of what I needed to live, our household, but also to pay the cards. So this was spiraling out of control. But I already knew these techniques. I had already used them. But it's not always just what you know. It's what you're doing at the time. You can know all of this stuff, and you can end up in debt like I did. And but I used one simple affirmation. Now, as I just alluded to and explained, I was doing all kinds of other things as a result of that, but not consciously. I just focused on the affirmation, and it was all of my credit cards are completely paid off. And I did that affirmation morning, night, in a day, out verbally when I could, not constantly, but a lot each day. Silently in my mind most of the time. You can be around other people. They don't even know you're doing it. And I had no idea how this could come about, though. Back then, more than 35 years ago, $10,000 might just as well have been $10 million. That's how much it seemed like to me, and really would have been. But about 4 to 6 weeks into that process, a person came into my life who I didn't know that well, had only met once or twice before, and they were in my home through a set of circumstances that started in their life, because they lived 150 miles away. About the time I started doing my affirmation, like right at that time, their life started having changes, and all of these things led to them being in my household at this time 4 to 6 weeks later, and probably about a month later. And I mentioned the debt that the household had, the $10,000, and this person had just come into a whole lot of money like within the day before, and or possibly even the same day, because this was evening already. And they said that, well, you don't need that debt. And they actually wrote us a check as a gift for $10,000. And I deposited that check, and then each credit card that came in, I paid the bill off in full. So within the next few weeks or so, I was completely debt free. I just started with that one affirmation, one technique, and just bulldogged it and focused on it, because this stuff does work. And it's also another great lesson there is we don't have to know how it's going to work.
Right.
We can't even figure out half the time. I could never have conceived this. Just, other than like winning the lottery or stumbling on a bag of money in the street, I wouldn't know how this could happen. But the universe knows, and your subconscious mind knows. If you use the techniques, if you develop the belief and expectancy, and those are chapters 2 and 3, very important, belief and expectancy. But within the first couple of days of saying the affirmation, I really did truly believe it. I felt it. I expected it. I felt like it had already happened. I was just so excited about it. And all of my credit cards are completely paid off, like when I was riding my bike to work and things like that. And it had to happen. It had to happen. And when you let the universe and your subconscious mind, which really they're very intertwined, there's no clear line between them in my mind where they can be separated. They're like one working unit, which is why your subconscious mind is so powerful. But, I could not have come up with that. There's just no way. But the point is that all of the changes, too, that happened in that person's life were positive. It was a complete upheaval, a complete change of life. They were never able to go back that 150 miles and take that life up again, but it probably saved their life, that they got out of what they were in. And that brings up an important point. When we figure out what we want, that's part of our job, and that's fine. And sometimes with our conscious mind, we figure out how to get what we want, and we try those ways. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But when we let the universe and our subconscious minds figure out the way, and we're open to our part, because there will be little things we need to do, but a lot of it we don't even have to do. It happens out there. Like I said, people's actions and the circumstances and events in general will mold to that. But when that process is in play, what I've found invariably, without exception, over decades of using these techniques, is that everything will always work out for the highest, best good of all, and in a complete divine harmony and divine order, and no one will suffer any due loss to help bring our gain. Now, I say no one will suffer any no one will suffer any undue loss, because people may lose, but it's not undue. In other words, they're a bad person. They were taking advantage, and now the tables are turned around. But it's just a much safer way than some people try to use mind power, and it can be used in these ways to actually orchestrate. I want to get this amount of money from that person, and I'm going to use my mind power and techniques of persuasion and all of this. And you're getting into very muddy and dangerous waters. Mm-hmm. But if you can learn to trust the universe in your subconscious mind and keep end results oriented and stay positive, keep the vision, do the different techniques that are in the book that I teach and that other people teach, and then let things unfold, you will always find that they work out in ways you couldn't have imagined. They work out in divine order, and often work out much better than you could have even imagined, and often you'll get more than you were even going for to begin with. That's the power of allowing the universe and your subconscious mind to do their job. You do your job, but don't try to do theirs, and everything's going to work out okay, financially and in all ways.
And then how important is meditation in this? And then how do you meditate if you meditate?
Right. I think, I've tried various types of meditation, and some of the, breathing exercises and this and that, and some of the teachers that are, teaching law of attraction and things like that, they do meditate, and they're avid meditators and advocate it. And I tell people, a lot of people really can't relate to meditating. And so there's really nothing in the book specifically about meditating. You're creating, it's kind of a walking meditation. You're creating an affirmative, positive state of mind in which you are already living in the circumstances that you want within your mind. You've already got the bank account. It's a form of meditation, some people have said, but it's not meditation in the normal sense. And I tell people, I've tried different forms of meditation, and they're beneficial. And I tell people, if you meditate, then that's great. Keep it up. There's nothing in this book that will conflict with that. But I also tell people, listen, if you just have no interest in meditating, or you've tried it and it just doesn't work or whatever, no problem whatsoever, because the techniques, the 20 points that I cover in the 20 chapters, they really have, meditation is not a part of it. So to use mind power, to create and manifest all the money you desire, meditation isn't going to hurt you, but it's not at all necessary in the process.
And then I was reading about, I just now started hearing about this one, the astral travel, but I saw you're so what exactly is that?
Right. Well, I've been I call myself a natural born astral traveler. I started, my earliest memories are from when I was like, maybe the house we were in, I think I lived there from when I was 5 to about 6.5. And so I have very vivid memories from that time I didn't realize what it was. My mother told me many years later, she said, yeah, back then, she said, you hated to go to sleep. You were afraid to sleep. You didn't want to sleep. And the reason was because I would get out of my body. And just astral travel doesn't have to be to some other astral dimensions, although I do that too. It can be other places on this planet, but it also, technically speaking, in my mind, any out-of-body experience is astral travel, because you're traveling astrally, you're getting out of your body. So I used to wake up in my sleeping body and sit up in my bed as a little boy and not know that I was still sleeping. In other words, I would think I'm awake, sitting on my bed. And strange, it always had a very strange, eerie feeling in the room. But I can tell you about one experience that's really quite amazing. It was in that same house. And I was terrified to go to sleep because I was having this same quote-unquote dream, but it wasn't a dream. Years later, when I got into astral traveling and lucid dreaming and things, I recognized that I was out of my body. But I had this dream where I would wake up in my bed, and this is back in New Jersey, and the old Italian lady from across the street would be sitting in my room right there looking at my bed, and I get the little hair standing up on my neck right now just talking about this, every time I talk about it. She was sitting in the rocking chair, and she kind of looked like a witch, and she was a very old, gray-haired Italian lady, and she was just sitting there rocking back and forth looking at me, and then she started rocking faster, and cackling like a witch, and just yelling, it got to... And the wind started whipping out around, and her hair was flying, and she was rocking like a maniac, screaming like a witch, and her chair then started spinning around and would eventually go right up through the ceiling. And I would wake up just, freaked. And I thought that was a dream. And I had that same dream every night for like, let's say, a week or so. It was a whole series of days. And on the last day that I'd had that dream, and I was in the kitchen in the morning, and my mother came in, and she said, or later, mid-morning, and she said, so-and-so, from across the street died last night. And it was the old lady. And I never had that dream again. That was it. But she was, I don't know exactly, I don't know that she knew what she was doing, but she may have been, a lot of people do know about out of body. I don't know why she would have been trying to terrorize me or whatever, but the point is that I had the same dream every single night. Even I thought it was a dream, but I later recognized it as a classic out of body experience. And then she died, and then I never had that dream again. So, but astral travel, I've been to, I've done it. I've induced out-of-body experiences, and they also often can happen once you get used to this. And anybody can do this. I'm convinced we all do this every single night. We detach from our bodies, but most people simply don't remember the experiences. But I think that anybody can learn it, though. So, but at times I'll just become aware that I'm standing at the other end of my room, and I'll look back at my bed, and I'll realize I'm out of my body. And then I can go outside, I can fly, I can do whatever I want. Sometimes I will wake up inside of my sleeping body. And so I'll open my eyes, and I'll think I'm awake, but my eyelids are actually still closed. And so then when you realize you're in your body still, then there's different techniques that different teachers teach, and I've tried some of them, and they work. Like you can rock back and forth, and then you can eventually rock out of your body and put your feet down on the floor and stand up, or you can rise up. There's ways to induce out-of-body experiences, like you're falling off to sleep and you imagine yourself floating up out of your body or being on the other side of the room. I've had that bilocality thing where I've actually been conscious of being in my body in the bed, looking at myself and the door, but I'm also in my body looking back. So I'm actually in both places at one time. And another very interesting thing is that I became aware of another life I have in a parallel dimension. And that was, I was in a normal dream. It was at night and I was on the street. And then it turned into a lucid dream, which means a lucid dream is simply, and I started doing these lucid dreams, and I'm a natural for lucid dreaming because I'm a natural born astral traveler. But I read my first book on lucid dreaming back whatever year that was. I think it was the Gulf War, and I was living up in Oregon. And I read my first book on lucid dreaming and took to it right away. But in this particular dream, I was in a normal dream, and then I became lucid. In other words, I realized I was dreaming, and then it turned into an astral, full-blown astral experience where I got scooped up from behind. There was some kind of a being that took a hold of me. It was holding me like you'd hold a baby in your arms. And then we were going through a really long, dark tunnel. And I was just seeing these like little windows on the sides, and I could sense and kind of see that there was people looking out of those windows. And then we came out the other end. We were traveling at a very accelerated speed, and we came out the other end, and this being went, and it was like a countryside setting, and it just set me down. I never looked back and saw it or anything. It set me down on a porch of a house, and I didn't know where I was or recognize it, but I walked through the door. I didn't knock or anything, and I knew where to go, and I walked straight up the stairs and to the right and into a bedroom, and there was a woman lying on the bed. And I walked over to her, and I bent down and kissed her, and it was all very natural. And I realized that she was my woman, whether that's wife or whatever. And then I realized, and I pulled down the cover there a little, and she had a baby, and I realized that was my baby. In other words, and in quantum physics and different teachers, they believe we live parallel lives. And so that's one, through astral travel, out-of-body experience, that I actually discovered. The only thing about, and I never saw myself, I never thought to look at my own hands there to see if, I was like her, but The odd thing about her, which did not seem odd to me at all, I didn't even, really think about it probably until later the next day, is that she was blue. She had blue skin and she was Oriental. But everything else looked normal. It looked like a regular country house, regular furniture, bed, everything, except for she was a blue Oriental woman. So, the dream state, that's a whole other thing. The dream state, the out-of-body state, I get all kinds of information in my dreams. People's real intentions toward me are exposed. I have these little scenarios and I see what they really think and feel. I lived one time next door to a house where the neighbor was very nosy, and one night I woke up in my body startled, but I was awake now in consciousness, but I was startled. I felt something was wrong. And so I rocked out of my body and I went over to the front window real quick. I felt like somebody was there, and it was the neighbor peeking in my window. And as soon as they saw me, they ran back and went right through their door or window or whatever. But it wasn't the neighbor. It was the neighbor in their astral body. Mm. And I've talked to that neighbor before, an old Italian guy, just happened to be another Italian guy, but this was in California. And the landlord was Italian, and he owned the house I was in and the house this person was in, next door to each other. I know that person was not an astral traveler. They didn't know anything about out of body. They didn't even know they were out of their body. The next day, I'm certain they never remembered it. But that showed me, that was one of the examples that showed me that everybody's getting out of their body. They just don't remember. And when he was out of his body, he was a little more free. He could walk right through the fence. There wasn't a fence to climb over and things like that. He probably didn't even see the fence because a lot of things don't register. So, so that's another fascinating area of endeavor that I'm going to be writing about, and that's lucid dreaming, astral travel, and out-of-body experiences.
Yeah, I was going to say, so what exactly is lucid dreaming, though?
Lucid dreaming is very simply that you, while you're dreaming, you become aware that you are dreaming. Mm. And it can be, oftentimes, it is, it's prompted by stress. We're very afraid in the dream, and just there's no way out, and just it's like a protective mechanism, I guess. We wake up in our dreams, but I am not aware of ever having woken up in a dream and realized I was dreaming until I read my first book about it, and I had my first lucid dream the first night. So people just hearing us right now, they might have a lucid dream tonight, once you know that it's possible. And there's certain ways to induce lucid dreaming, and one is to, and people, even without reading about lucid dreaming, they can do this one thing, and perhaps come up with some lucid dreams for themselves. And that is to what they call testing your state, or state testing. And what it is like I'm awake right now, and I will, and if I want to do lucid dreaming and I haven't been doing it, then I'll do some of this, and then I'll start doing it again, because I'll always have lucid dreams and out of body, even with no thought to it whatsoever, spontaneous, but sporadic. But so I'm sitting here right now talking to you, and I can ask myself, is this a dream? Could this be a dream? Am I really awake? And of course, the first thing that we're going to think of was, of course, I'm awake. And that's the same thing in a dream. No matter what craziness is going on, you could be talking to a three-eyed waitress in a honky-tonk bar with Elvis, who's dead, singing on the stage, and you'll think, well, of course this is real. But then you test your state, and there's different ways to do it. One is that it's been found, and it's a universal experience, that if you look at anything written, I have a piece of paper here, or I have my book title I could look at. If I look away from it and look back, if I'm dreaming, it will have changed. For some reason, in a dream, the printed word and letters and numbers are not stable. So if you turn away and turn back, so that's one way to test your state. I can look at the book, I turn away, I look back, it's still the same. Another way, which is one of my favorites and the one I most often use, if I'm in a dream, and all of a sudden I have the thought, I wonder if I could be dreaming. I take my hand and I'll find a wall or a table or something, and I'll push really hard. And I'll do it right now because I'm not sure. Well, I am sure now because the book cover didn't change. But I'll push really, really hard with my hand on the table. And if I'm dreaming at some point, and it won't take very long, 3-4 seconds, it'll go into the table or it'll go into the wall and share the same space. And another one I do sometimes is I'll jump up in the air. And I'll see if I'm dreaming, I absolutely 100% am going to stay up a little bit longer and come down a little slower than is normal with our gravity here. And so there's certain ways to test it. But it's a very empowering, people who talk about it, and anybody can go online today. They can punch up some videos about it. They can look at books about it. Articles about it, but it's very, very empowering. People wake up just feeling elated and with a new sense of vigor and power, and it carries sometimes, quite often, through the entire rest of the day. I think it's one of the most powerful spiritual exercises, because it really is a practice. Lucid dreaming is a practice, and I've heard it said. I'm not saying it because I don't have enough experience with one technique of meditation to make this judgment call. I'm not qualified to make it, but I have heard people say that it's as effective or as powerful a spiritual practice as any form of meditation that's ever been devised. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but some people seem to think that. When you're aware that you're dreaming, when you're in your dreams, it changes everything. Like I can be in a dark room and I can say lighter, 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 and just through sheer force of will and intention, make the room get lighter. I can fly, I can and do. I can fly under the ocean and breathe and fly as much, stay under the water as long as I want. But and then there's the wish fulfillment angle. A lot of people, you'll see in the writings, they have sex in their dreams because they know their inhibitions are gone. They know they're dreaming. They like that woman that's across the street or something is appealing to them, or the man, and there's no rules, and they can do anything they want. So some people use it for wish fulfillment. It's really good for facing your fears. Like in the beginning, if let's say you're running down the street and some people are chasing you, some muggers or whatever, and you're really, really afraid, and you don't test your state, but just because you're a lucid dreamer, the stress of the fear causes you to become lucid, and then you say, this is just a dream. Then you have a choice. In the beginning, most people are going to fly away. They're going to say, this is a dream, I can fly. And so they're going to fly away from the danger. But as you get further in, you realize there's even more benefit from not flying away, but from turning and facing it. And just to give an example, I had a dream one time that I was on this gravelly dirt road out in the country somewhere, and I was running. I was being chased by men on horseback. 6 men, 8 men, I don't know, but big men, big horses, and they all had slingshots. And they were shooting me with the rocks with their slingshots, and it really, really hurt, like I was awake. And through the stress and the fear, I became aware that I was dreaming. And of course, my first thought is, I could fly away now. But then I thought, no, I'm going to face this. And I turned around and I just stood my ground. And they kept coming. They kept shooting at things. I kept feeling them. And I just said, you have no power over me. You have no power over me. And I just stood my ground. And they started shooting the slingshots less. And then the horses slowed way down and seemed to get smaller. The men and the horses got smaller and a little paler, not so vibrant in color. And they started kind of like looking around at each other like they were embarrassed to be there. And there's a great spiritual lesson in this, in that so much of what we fear in the physical, material world is not the boogeyman that we think it is. Our fear feeds it its power. Our fear makes it what it is. We've all heard, what we resist persists. I coined a new phrase that's in my quote book, JGJ Thoughts, Volume 1, and that is, we give might to what we fight. So, and that's another great point. I've also, in dreams where I'm facing danger, a bad guy, a monster, or whatever, I've also thought, well, I can't really get hurt, so let me get in there and fight this thing. And what you find is the more you fight it, the more it fights back. The more you exert force against this dream thing, even though you know it's a dream thing, even though you know you're dreaming, the stronger it seems to get. And it's almost like a mirror reflection. The resistance you're putting out is met by resistance back. The violence or the force you're trying to exert from yourself is reflected right back to you. The stronger you feel you are, or you try to be, the stronger that which you are fighting is. And it's a very it brings into the spiritual angle that we were talking about lucid dreaming, is that it's just so much a record and an indication and a mirror of how things are in this world. And in the waking state, here's another thing, and many mystics have said that life is but a dream. Basically life is a dream world. Quantum physics actually backs this up. It's a world of energy and consciousness. Physical matter is an illusion. The spaces between atoms and molecules in this table just may as well be as far away from each other as the moon is from the sun, or as our planet is from the moon. And we become more aware in this life that it is a dream also. And we start to see that, figuratively speaking, and I've heard reports of people who have actually done it, but I've never seen it myself, but that figuratively speaking at least, that we can fly. Life is a dream. We know we're dreaming. Like, I know this is a dream too. It's the other dream. It's a different kind of dream, but it's also a dream. And I also know that, like in the nighttime dreams, the lucid dreams, that if I fight something, it's going to fight me back. If I resist something, it's going to persist. If I run away from something, it's going to chase me. If I turn and face something and master my own fear, that thing is going to be shown to be probably nothing, but certainly much, much less of a threat than I would have imagined it to be. And we have the power, figuratively speaking, in this lifetime to fly. We can just say, instead of, I want this room to be light, I need a new car. New car. And, whether someone gives you a car, I've had someone give me a car. When we came back to San Diego, gave us a car, and we needed a car. So we had lived out of state several times many years ago. So again, lucid dreaming in itself, and there's a lot of parallels. I gave the one example where I went from a standard dream into a lucid dream, then immediately into a full-blown astral travel experience. There's overlap in all of these, and when I started doing lucid dreaming consciously, I was keeping journals every day. I had all these experiences I was having, and my dream recall went way up. And that's another way to help induce lucid dreaming, is to start being aware of what you're dreaming now. And that means dream journal, whether it's writing down your dreams or a recorder. And you got to do it really quick, because later on you'll forget. So if I wake up at 3 o'clock to go to the bathroom and I got a little piece of a dream, I'll jot it down real quick so I can remember it, because invariably in the morning I won't remember. But that's another thing that you'll find. Your dream recall goes way up. And you can simply help induce lucid dreaming now that you know that it's a possibility through. Your first step can be keeping a dream journal, which as soon as you start keeping it, you'll see your dream recall will go way up automatically. You can start writing one little piece of a dream, and all of a sudden you remember more of it that you didn't remember a moment ago. And you can keep writing, and then you'll remember the dream before. It's very amazing. It's like grabbing a tiny little thread, and you can start pulling it. And I got to the point up in Oregon there, we were snowed in the winter and all this stuff, and where I was spending hours transcribing from the tapes into the notebook. A couple of hours. I mean, there was so much information. But what I found is, when I started doing lucid dreaming, it's all I was trying to do after I read the book in Oregon, Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming, I think it was, by Stephen LaBerge, who was a lucid dreaming researcher at Stanford University. And but automatically, my out-of-body experiences went through the roof. I mean, almost every night I was finding myself, just all of a sudden become aware that I'm standing in the kitchen. And I'm like, well, what am I doing here? And I'd start looking around. I notice things are a little off. They have a kind of a fuzzy, weird feeling to them, and I would realize I'm out of my body. And then sometimes I'd go outside and fly, or I could do whatever I want. So lucid dreaming and astral body and out-of-body experiences, they're very, there's not a clear line between them. They're very, very interrelated. And some people, just for those people who will think that possibly this is not true, like your mind fills it in afterwards, but you didn't really realize you were dreaming in a dream. Absolutely not true. What Stephen LaBerge found out in the Stanford studies was they had a dream laboratory, and what they did, so they found out that people dream in REM sleep, the rapid eye movements, REM sleep, and they could tell, and so they would have people hooked up to all the things, and they'd have them in the sleep lab overnight sleeping, and they found, of course, that the eye movements were when they were dreaming. So they could wake a person up from REM sleep when they saw the eye movements, and they could then ask that person, because they're waking them up while they were dreaming, they could ask them, well, what were you dreaming? But I guess, I don't know if this was the first case, but it may have been, where in rapid eye movement sleep, your eyes just, under your eyelids, they're just darting around. And they noticed that this person's eye movements were going left, right, left, right, left, right. Very unusual. And they woke the person up in that point, and they said, what were you dreaming? And they said, well, I was watching a tennis match. And so it's been proven that the eyes in the sleeping body behind the closed eyelids are moving the same as the dreaming eyes in the dreaming body when you're dreaming. And that, more important than that fact is just that is absolute, indisputable proof, scientifically proven, that lucid dreaming is real. We can actually be sound asleep, deep in a dream, and become aware that we're dreaming. And, you can get spiritual knowledge in dreams. You can seek out someone and ask them questions. You can come up with a spiritual teacher. I mean, you can make huge spiritual progress. And I haven't been inducing them lately. I'm actually, I have a spontaneous one maybe every few weeks or whatever. But I'm actually going to start doing this again now, because I'm getting excited about it again as I talk about it. I'm going to start doing a little induction and stuff, because it's a spiritually very enlightening and empowering process. You gain spiritual knowledge, not from some teacher here or some book, or you gain knowledge direct from the source. And the thing is, you carry it into your waking life, and it's not only true there, whatever you learn there is also true here. So lucid dreaming, I'm really really pro lucid dreaming, because it's a very powerful spiritual practice.
All right, so interviews, we're like at 50 minutes right now, so there's a lot of more questions I want to ask you, but hopefully we probably can do a follow-up later, a few months
Certainly, I'm open anytime.
So one more question, and then I'm gonna wrap it up. This is simple. Okay. This is kind of off the wall, but what do you think about cats? I see a lot of people, like, cats have a meaning.
Right. Actually, I don't know what to say about cats. I can tell you that I am allergic to cats.
Oh.
Much less in my older years, but I was allergic to cats. Had allergies as a kid, and but we always had cats, and I didn't know that. I can be allergic to birds, some dogs. I have different kinds of allergies. But I do know that people use them like the old, familiar, they call it, or witch will have a black cat kind of a thing. But I do know that animals, I communicate with animals not as like I'm not a horse whisperer or anything, but I have talked to horses, and my friend Kathy, who's a medium, a very advanced medium and psychic in that way, not so much reading the future, but she talks to animals too, and they tell her about what, like a dog will tell her what it's like at home and stuff. So I do know that cats and animals are very intelligent, all animals really, and there is a spiritual component there. We've been in houses where the pet has died and then it's still there, still romping around, only healthy now and younger. So I believe that their spirits, just like ours, were here before they came into this world, and that they still exist after they go out, and that people have connections with animals, whether they be cats, dogs, or whatever, that they do carry from lifetime to lifetime. In other words, the same animals, the same people will seek each other out.
All right, I want to say thank you for coming through Politicking with me.
Yeah, it's been great, and a nice surprise. We got into some other areas too that I wasn't, we didn't know we would get into. I would like to mention, for people who attracting money is their thing or their need, that of course my book is How to Attract Money Using Mind Power. But if they go to my website, James GoiJr.com, they can sign up for my free monthly Mind Power and Money e-zine, which is a great resource. But they can also, when they do that, download a free PDF copy of my book Attract Money Forever, which is a companion book to How to Attract Money Using Mind Power. Covers all the same topics. And also, if they like to read Kindle books, they can go to Amazon and they can download a free copy. I'm keeping it free all the time. And it's my little book called 10 Metaphysical Secrets of Manifesting Money. And that's completely free as a Kindle download from Amazon.
PoPolitickin.com.
Thanks for listening to PoPolitickin.com, a self-help meets hip-hop brand. If you are an artist or business owner wanting to be featured on PoPolitickin.com, contact us at PoPolitickin@gmail.com. That's PoPolitickin@gmail.com. Or text 760-717-5803. If you're a listener that enjoys the show and wants to support, you can donate to PoPolitickin.com via PayPal.com. Please send donations to PoPolitickin@gmail.com. Any amount will be helpful in continuing to create quality content and shows. As always, check out PoPolitickin.com for past episodes. Make sure you subscribe to PoPolitickin on iTunes, YouTube, Podomatic, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play.